There is a moment in history that was never supposed to be remembered. August 24th, 79 AD. A ordinary morning in a thriving Roman city, and by sunset, every single person you are about to meet will be dead. This is not a story about ruins. This is about the last 24 hours of a city that had no idea it was living its final day. No warning system, no evacuation plan, no word in their language for what was about to happen. Today, using AI reconstruction, I am taking you inside Pompeii on that morning. You will walk streets that are still alive. You will see faces that do not yet know they are about to be erased. And you will witness the moment when a mountain tears itself apart and buries an entire civilization in ash. The question is not whether they survived. We already know they did not. The question is, how long would you have lasted before realizing the truth? That the mountain you trusted was the enemy that had been waiting all along. You wake up in Pompeii, not the Pompeii of ruins and roped-off streets, but the real one, the one that is still breathing. The sun has not yet cleared the rooftops. Light enters through narrow windows, cutting across floors of polished stone. Outside, the city is already stirring. Wooden shutters scrape open. Voices call across courtyards. Somewhere close, a dog barks twice, then stops. This is not a special day. This is an ordinary morning in one of the most prosperous cities in the Roman Empire. Pompeii in 79 AD is not a village. It is a commercial center with nearly 20,000 people, sitting 5 miles from Mount Vesuvius on the Bay of Naples. The city has stood for over 700 years. It has survived wars, conquests, and even a massive earthquake 17 years earlier in 62 AD. Rebuilding is still underway in some districts, but life has returned to normal. Walk through the streets now, and you see a city that believes in its future. The Via della Bendanza, the main street, is already crowded. Merchants unlock iron grills covering shop fronts. Bakers slide loaves into stone ovens, the smell of fresh bread drifting into the morning air. A wine cellar rolls amphorae onto the street, arranging them for display. Children run past, barefoot, shouting something you cannot quite hear. The walls are covered in writing, political slogans painted in red. Vote for Gaius Julius Polybius for Duumvir, personal messages scratched into plaster. Successus, the weaver loves Iris, the innkeeper's slave girl. Insults, jokes, advertisements. The city talks to itself through its walls. Step into the Forum, the heart of civic life. Columns rise on all sides, framing an open square already filled with people. Lawyers argue cases under covered porticos. Priests prepare offerings at the temple of Jupiter, smoke rising from bronze altars. Wealthy men in white togas move through the crowd, trailed by slaves carrying scrolls and wax tablets. This is a city that works, a city that plans, a city that has no reason to believe today will be different from yesterday. But look closer. If you know what is coming, you can see the signs they are missing. Dogs are restless, pacing in tight circles, whining without cause. Horses stamp in their stables, refusing to eat. Birds fly in erratic patterns, landing and taking off again without settling. Wells that usually run clear have turned sulfurous, the water tasting sharp and wrong. Small earthquakes have been happening for days, tremors so common in this region that no one pays attention anymore. Cups rattle on tables, walls creak. People pause, wait for it to pass, then continue what they were doing. They do not know that these are not ordinary tremors. They are the final warnings of a mountain preparing to explode. At approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Vesuvius detonates. The sound is beyond anything the Roman world has words for, a roar like the sky tearing open. The top of the mountain, which had been a peaceful, vegetation-covered slope, shatters. A column of superheated gas, ash, and pulverized rock shoots 15 miles into the stratosphere at nearly the speed of sound. In the forum, people freeze. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Heads turn toward the mountain. For a few seconds, there is only silence and staring. Then the screaming begins. The column spreads outward at the top, forming the shape that Pliny the Younger will later describe as resembling an umbrella pine tree. But from street level, it looks like the end of the world. The sky darkens. The sun disappears behind a wall of ash, and then the mountain begins to rain stone. Pumice stones begin to fall. At first they are small, the size of grapes, light enough to brush off your shoulders. People look up, confused, trying to understand what they are seeing. Within minutes, the stones grow larger, fist-sized, then the size of human heads. They fall faster and faster, a relentless hail of volcanic rock that does not stop. Roofs begin to collapse, tiles shatter. Woo! Then beams crack under the weight. The sound is everywhere, a constant pounding like 1,000 hammers striking at once. People run. Some head toward the harbor, hoping to escape by sea. Others retreat into their homes, barricading doors, pulling pillows and wooden boards over their heads. Parents grab children. The wealthy call for slaves to gather valuables. The streets fill with bodies moving in every direction, colliding, stumbling, falling. The pumice falls at a rate of 6 inches per hour. For 12 hours, it does not stop. The city is buried in a growing blanket of stone. Buildings that were once 2 stories tall are now buried to their first-floor windows. Streets disappear. Landmarks vanish. Pompeii is being erased in real time. Breathing becomes difficult. The air is thick with fine ash that burns the lungs and clogs the throat. People tie cloth over their faces, but it offers little protection. Eyes sting. Throats close. Every breath is a fight. Visibility is near zero. The darkness is total, lit only by occasional flashes of lightning generated by the static electricity in the ash cloud. The city has become a nightmare landscape where the sky is falling and the ground is rising to meet it. In the gladiatorial barracks near the theater, 17 men are trapped. These are professional fighters, slaves and criminals condemned to die in the arena. When archaeologists find them centuries later, they will still be in chains, huddled in a corner of their cell, their bodies frozen in their final moments. Near them is the body of a wealthy woman, her skeleton adorned with gold jewelry. She had sought refuge in the barracks, perhaps hoping the thick walls would protect her. They did not. At the harbor, dozens of people have gathered, hoping to escape by sea. But the boats cannot launch. The falling pumice has created a thick raft of floating stone on the water's surface. The waves are violent, whipped by the superheated winds pouring down from the mountain. One man, later identified by archaeologists as a soldier based on the gladius found near his skeleton, lies face down at the water's edge. He made it to the sea, but no farther. In the villa of Diones, just outside the city walls, 18 people have taken shelter in the underground cryptoporticus, a vaulted corridor used for storage. They bring blankets, food, and lamps. The thick walls and underground location seem safe. For hours, they wait in the darkness, listening to the muffled thunder of the eruption above. But the air in the sealed space gradually becomes unbreathable. Carbon dioxide, heavier than air, seeps down from the devastation above. One by one, they succumb. When archaeologists find them, the bodies are still grouped together. Men, women, children, frozen in their final moments of waiting for safety that never came. By dawn on August 25th, Pompeii is buried under 12 feet of pumice. The city is unrecognizable. Only the highest walls and the tops of a few buildings protrude above the gray-white blanket. The eruption has entered a new phase, and what comes next will leave no survivors. The column of ash and gas, which has been climbing for 18 hours, becomes unstable. It is too heavy to sustain itself, and then it collapses. What happens next is called a pyroclastic surge. A superheated avalanche of gas, ash, and rock fragments roars down the side of Vesuvius at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. The temperature is between 300 and 600 degrees Celsius. Nothing living can survive it. The first surge reaches the outskirts of Pompeii at approximately 6:30 in the morning. It flows like a fluid, following the contours of the land, pouring over walls and through windows. Death is instantaneous. The heat kills before the victims can even draw breath. Muscles contract violently, pulling bodies into the pugilistic pose, arms bent, fists clenched, that will later be preserved in the ash. The surge passes in seconds. Then comes the flow, a denser wave of material that buries everything in its path. Walls collapse, roofs are ripped away. The city that has stood for 700 years ceases to exist. By the time the eruption ends, 2 days after it began, Pompeii is buried under 20 feet of volcanic material. Herculaneum, a smaller town closer to Vesuvius, is entombed under 60 feet of superheated mud. Stabiae, to the south, is destroyed. The coastline of the bay has changed. The mouth of the Sarno River has shifted. The Roman world barely notices. Pliny the Elder, the famous naturalist and commander of the Roman fleet at Misenum, dies while attempting a rescue mission. His nephew, Pliny the Younger, writes 2 letters to the historian Tacitus describing the eruption. These letters are the only detailed eyewitness accounts that survive. But for the Roman Empire, the destruction of Pompeii is a regional tragedy, not an imperial crisis. The Emperor Titus sends aid to survivors. Some families return to dig the ruins, hoping to recover valuables. But the city is never rebuilt. Within a generation, the exact location is forgotten. Pompeii disappears from memory. For 1,700 years, it lies in darkness. In 1748, during the reign of Charles III of Spain, King of Naples, explorers begin to excavate what they believe are ancient ruins. They find walls, frescoes, and statuary. Slowly, the realization dawns. This is not just a ruin. This is a city perfectly preserved. The volcanic ash and pumice that buried Pompeii also sealed it. Unlike cities that crumble slowly over centuries, eroded by wind, rain, and human activity, Pompeii was protected. The ash hardened into a shell, preserving organic materials that normally decay: wood, fabric, food, even the shapes of human bodies. In 1863, the archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli develops a revolutionary technique. Where excavators find hollow spaces in the ash, voids left after bodies decomposed, Fiorelli injects liquid plaster. When the plaster hardens and the surrounding ash is carefully removed, what remains is a perfect cast of the body in its final moment. The results are haunting. A man crouches on his side, his hands covering his face. A dog, still chained to a post, writhes in agony as the ash buries him alive. A mother clutches her children. A pregnant woman lies on her back, her belly swollen. These are not ancient abstractions. These are individuals caught in the final seconds of their lives. The excavations reveal something unprecedented in archaeology: a complete cross-section of Roman life. Not the idealized world of emperors and monuments, but the real, messy, complicated world of ordinary people. We find the houses of the rich, with their frescoes depicting gods, heroes, and elaborate garden scenes. We find the homes of shopkeepers, cramped apartments above their places of business. We find the graffiti of schoolboys, the love letters of young women, the financial records of bankers. We find the brothels, with their explicit wall paintings and the names of prostitutes scratched into the plaster. We find political slogans, insults, jokes, and prayers. In one home, a loaf of bread sits on a table, carbonized but still recognizable, stamped with the baker's mark. In another, a bowl of eggs turned to stone waits for a breakfast that will never be eaten. In a tavern, wine amphorae still rest against the wall, their contents evaporated but their positions unchanged. Pompeii shows us the forum and the temples, but it also shows us the public latrines, where Romans sat side by side without embarrassment, discussing the day's events. It shows us the graffiti of a bored student. "O wall, I am amazed that you have not yet collapsed, so heavily burdened as you are with all this tedious scribbling." It shows us the obscene good luck charms, the phallus symbols carved over doorways and painted on street corners, meant to ward off evil and bring prosperity. It shows us the small household shrines, the lyraria, where families made offerings to their ancestors and household gods. It shows us the gap between the ideal and the reality, the beautiful public buildings still under repair from the earthquake 17 years earlier, the piles of construction materials abandoned in mid-project. Pompeii forces us to confront the Romans not as mythic figures, but as human beings, with all the contradictions that implies. These were people who built aqueducts and road systems that remained unsurpassed for over 1,000 years. They were also people who watched gladiators kill each other for entertainment and thought nothing of keeping human beings as property. The excavations continue to this day. Approximately 2/3 of the city has been uncovered. The remaining third remains buried, preserved for future generations of archaeologists with better tools and techniques. New discoveries are made every year. In 2018, archaeologists discovered a fresco of Leda and the swan in such vivid color that it looks as if it were painted yesterday. In 2020, they found the bodies of two men, likely a wealthy patron and his slave, killed instantly by the pyroclastic surge. In 2021, a ceremonial chariot, elaborately decorated with bronze and tin, emerged from a villa north of the city, one of only a handful ever found. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, another fragment of understanding about how Romans lived, worked, loved, and died. But Pompeii is more than an archaeological site. It has become a symbol, a reminder of the fragility of civilization, a demonstration that everything we build, no matter how solid it seems, can be erased in hours. Vesuvius still stands above the bay. It is not extinct. It is dormant. The last major eruption was in 1944 during World War II. Geologists consider it one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world because of the 3 million people who live in the shadow of its slopes. Naples, one of Europe's largest cities, sits less than 6 miles from the crater. The Romans did not know they were living in danger. We do. And yet people remain, drawn by the same fertile soil and beautiful coastline that attracted settlers 3,000 years ago. Looking back, the destruction of Pompeii on that August day in 79 AD was not just a tragedy. It was a gift to the future. Because the city was buried so quickly and so completely, it was protected from the slow decay that erased so many other ancient sites. Pompeii did not fall to barbarian invasions, Christian iconoclasts, or medieval scavengers. It did not crumble stone by stone into the earth. It was sealed like a time capsule, waiting. What we see today when we walk through the ruins is as close as we will ever come to walking through an actual Roman city. The streets are the streets they walked. The buildings are the buildings they knew. The graffiti are the words they wrote. The bodies, frozen in plaster, are the people themselves. History is not an abstract collection of dates and names. It is the story of individual human lives, lived in hope and fear, in joy and suffering, in a world that can change without warning. On the morning of August 24th, 79 AD, The people of Pompeii woke thinking they had another ordinary day ahead of them. They were wrong, but their final day, preserved in ash and stone, became one of the most extraordinary archaeological treasures in human history. Empires rise and fall, maps are redrawn, technologies transform the world, but Pompeii reminds us of something more fundamental, that every moment is fragile, that every civilization rests on the edge of disaster, and that the only immortality available to us is the memory we leave behind. I'm Michael, watching the past so we can understand the present, and together we keep history fueled. I see you in the next era.